We have all heard the saying, know your value. And being able to fully understand the real meaning behind that line, we have brought in cinematographer and director Sandro Pehar. From hot topics like pricing, burnout, and the culture of this industry, Sandro has a wealth of knowledge and experience with each regard. And we are going to dive into how he managed to overcome those challenges and find success within his career. We are also going to break down his short film, Melody, which he lit entirely with candles and natural light. So, welcome to the Apple Box Podcast. My name is Danny Lau. I'm your host, and I'm sitting alongside my co-host, Anthony Valtsinas. And in front of us today is Sandro Pehar. So, let's get into it. Sandro Pehar, is that your name? Is how you pronounce it?
That's
Sandro
it.
Pehar. All right, cool, man. Welcome to the Apple Box Podcast, bro. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Man, I know you're a big gearhead. I know that's how we met.
Yeah.
In fact, he saw me buying a 1200D, and then next thing you know, he goes and buys 600C. I'm not sure if that was planned or you're just.
It was funny. I was like, oh man, I gotta get something here.
yeah.
It's gonna walk out with like an SD card. I'm like, no, I'm going in.
That's the trap with Vistec is you walk in, then you feel like you need to.
You just meet people.
I
and
might
it's
need
like,
that.
Yeah, you're looking at someone's like, he's taking a 1200D. Okay.
Yeah, because
playing this game.
Who is he to get?
I think it was the salesman who's just like, you want a 1200D, and my ears perked up. I'm like, oh yes.
Yeah.
I have the money.
Yeah.
I don't have a 1200D. It makes sense.
Exactly.
And when I got the 600C, he was like, oh my god, should I get the 600C? I'm like, we're gonna both.
We're totally gonna do
We
this.
both got to go home right now.
Yeah, it's like an addiction.
Yeah.
We got to go.
Not ideal.
eat
It
a
was
burger
so
or
close
something.
because I was like, yeah, they got like 2 more or something like that. I'm just like,
Yeah.
That's a nice sales tactic. Like, yeah, there's only 2 left.
yeah.
Some other idiot might grab one.
Yeah, exactly.
Get a
How
phone.
you been liking the 600C, by the way?
The 600C is phenomenal. I gotta say, aperture 600C for people who don't know, phenomenal light. The color, the amount of color you can dial in, the preciseness. Also, what I found sometimes when I do product shoots with food, you can dial in the white temperature to a really specific quality. So you can it's not 5600 Kelvin.
Yeah.
5600 Kelvin is most of your LED lights.
Yeah.
So when you dial it into just a little under, it makes the food pop. Yeah, it's a little bit of a greenish quality to it, and it mixes well with usually foods are brown and so on and so forth. So it has a nice. It's a great light. I love it. Wireless control.
Yeah.
It's just a little large. That's my only complaint. But
It
whatever.
is
It's
big.
a beefy boy.
Yeah. We used it one time on a shoot, just at rental, and
Two of them,
it was very big. I was like, damn, this is actually bigger than I expected it to be. But now I know there's so much competition out there, like Prolock. Have you heard Prolock?
Yeah.
675.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in stock, by the way.
Come on.
It's in stock.
It's in stock. But that
You guys
guy's
both go there after this.
I know.
I think
both
my-
of our phones.
I think when just like I guess on a note about gear buying
Yeah.
and this is I think we'll come up to this later. Should I buy? Should I rent? So on. But like, let's say you're buying.
Yeah.
You kind of want to stay in the same system, right? Because we were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
Sidus Link. It's just so much easier.
Yeah.
I was on a shoot last year with David Griff, who's phenomenal.
Yeah.
He's-
We have him
he's-
on this. We have him on the
Oh,
podcast.
sweet.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
He's a legend.
And we were shooting on Astera tubes and aperture lights, and he just dialed in the system all like he was on his phone the whole time. And
Wizard.
he was a wizard, right?
Yeah,
And that helps a lot. So I don't know. Staying in the systems is it's a hard decision because some of the lights like
Yeah, exactly.
much cheaper, right?
It's convenience is sometimes better than that little bit of better light quality or a little bit more output. I find like convenience is key. Like we love the Astera tubes because sometimes it's like, you know what, if an Astera can get away with it in a snap bag, why do we got to carry around a 600D?
100%.
You know, with a soft box. And then now we got to bring a combo stand out, and now we got to like find a way to plug it in. And these guys are just like, all right, put it in, just run with it.
Boom.
You know, and it's like
You
convenience.
can rig it with zip ties if you really need to.
Yeah,
It's like,
you can
what?
gaff tape it if you have to.
Yeah.
You know, like you can get away with a few things.
That's why it's 10K.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why it is
They know.
expensive.
They know what they're
doing.
Make
Exactly.
it cheaper.
Not it's not Godox.
Yeah. It's not
Yeah.
Godox, no.
Yeah. So
I, as a photographer, I was a Godox guy because it's budget friendly.
Yeah.
yeah, for the longest time you had Godox.
Then I eventually spent like 20 grand on pro photos and never
Yeah.
looked back. Big investment versus like $800 Godox. But
Yeah, I still use Godox for photo stuff
Yeah.
because again, it's like hella cheap. And to be honest with you, photo,
You can get away with it.
You can get away with a lot easier.
We were doing some high speed stuff, sports, and it just wasn't doing the trick.
Yeah,
which
the
makes
buffering
sense.
was killing us. Yeah.
Yeah, but for like headshots, lifestyle photography,
Yeah.
food, you can Godox is, you can buy 10 of them for the price of a pro photo. So
I think that's the one most common thing about everyone sitting at this table today is we are all gear hits.
Yeah.
And we are all owner operators and we love buying gear.
Yeah.
And, maybe we just hop
stopping.
right into that topic because
Yeah,
we're going to get into who you are, but, we're already in this topic. So gear, like in terms of gear, owner operator, something you regret, something you would change.
That's a great question. I'm actually currently going through this existential crisis
Right.
of whether I should sell everything and
Yeah.
start renting. I haven't done the price breakdowns yet, but I think that is the method to figure this out. So I've been accruing gear for quite a bit. And when we met, I was buying more lighting equipment, so on and so forth, buying more gripping equipment, buying this, buying that. And there is a utility to it. And the utility is freedom.
Right.
The freedom of a quick turnover for a shoot.
Yeah.
Not having to maybe, let's say, hire someone to deal with rental stuff. And also doing creative projects. Like we all got into this for a reason, creativity,
Yeah.
art, filmmaking, and the ability to, like, let's say, go on a project with friends is really nice for low cost because you already own it.
yes,
Thus, the strange part is I'm thinking that renting might actually be more cost effective. Like you might make more
think
money
so.
that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think on paper, yes. I think, but logistically, you got to think now you got to rent, now you got to get insurance, now you got to go pick it up, now you got to drop it off.
Absolutely.
Right. So there's that time as well.
yes,
And look, as cinematographers, directors, photographers, we focus on selling our craft, our skills,
yeah.
right? But the actual money in the owning world is renting it.
Yeah.
Right. That is the
And kit fees.
kit fees and also like developing a name and being like a small renter within your
Yes.
friend group or
Yeah.
whatever or the community. So that is a way to do it. Kit fees are nice if you can really get them. I feel like also another part of getting gigs is
Yeah.
we all know it. It's like they know you have the gear,
Yes, that's
so
true.
they'll be like, "Hey, maybe we'll just give it to this guy because he's got the."
Because he's going to
got the
bring
gear.
the truck full of
clients
stuff.
don't really know like let's say I'm a cinematographer, for example, right? No, then like a regular client doesn't know that I can rent stuff, and I usually rent stuff.
Yeah.
No, like, oh, this person has gear, that means they are this.
Yeah.
If they don't have anything, like who are they?
100%.
But so it's kind of weird, and they also I feel like they would almost object sometimes, be like, well, you got to rent this, then you got to charge me for you not owning the gear. Like there might be more objections in the way of like landing the gig if you don't own the gear, maybe.
Yeah.
But I never had
Yeah.
the opposite. Like we've always owned gear, so
Yeah, we've always owned gear. And like there is that part of you that thinks, okay, on the business side of things, like it makes more sense to rent because you just charge them for it and you don't have to put $1 out of your own pocket. But I will say, like, at the same time, if you really think about, like, okay, we're going into a 12-hour, 14-hour shoot day, like, are you going to go and rent, like, the time you have to put
Exactly.
together gear lists? By the time you go on shoot, like, you have to make sure you have not only what you need, but kind of, like, what you might need. And I think that's the biggest thing about owning gear is you can go back, you know what? Oh, it's a good thing I brought this extra, you know what I mean? But, like,
so the
renting.
safety net.
There's a safety net. And on top of that, like if you break something off a rental, like, like you got to explain to your producer or your client or whatever it is you're doing, being like, hey, yeah, by the way, we're going to have to dig into that insurance because, we broke the light. And then it becomes like a little bit of fuss going on there. Like, well, it wasn't my fault. Well, it wasn't my fault, And
I think it's just a natural progression. Like when you first start shooting, you don't know what you're doing.
yeah.
But you need to buy gear to practice.
Yes.
You're not like
that is
starting
true.
out 16 and you gotta like, I'm gonna go rent a camera like to practice my craft. Like you gotta buy stuff. I think you fall into that trap. Eventually you get old enough, more experience to realize to do the jobs correctly, I gotta rent.
Absolutely.
So I think it's just like it's forever gonna be this way.
That's true.
I don't think it's gonna
Yeah.
change. It might. But I don't think it will.
One of the things that I'm coming to realize is that you want a core kit that you can
Yes.
like, let's say you shoot in a room that you can shoot out a whole room without having to supplement.
Yeah.
And then adding things as you need them in the rental package.
Yeah.
So
I think
that's
it's
kind of where I'm living right now, and that's just lighting. We're not even like cameras are a whole nother
A whole
world,
other
right?
world. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you own, what cameras do you own?
So I own a C200 and a Canon R5, and the C200 I got when it was relatively new.
Okay.
Again, right? It's like the pace of technology.
You're looking to upgrade, man.
Yeah, like
Especially
the
with
pace
Canon.
of,
Jesus
yeah, the
Christ.
pace of technology is just like whiplashing, right?
Yeah, C200 it's like it's almost like
It just doesn't compete with like
Yeah.
what's happening with like 8-bit. It shoots raw, but like raw's too much.
yes.
Right.
8-bit's too little.
Yeah.
No middle.
You know,
There's no middle.
there's no middle.
Philip Bloom mentioned that in his review back in the day.
Yeah. So that was a hard part. It served me well. Like honestly, it served me well, and I paid off the camera with rentals and kit fees. So
sick.
on a business perspective, it's fine. But again, you know, you're coming out with like little box reds that are 6K or 7K
You
or
got
whatever they are, and
Komodos,
they're just
you got FX3s now. You got
they're slapping,
FX6s.
right?
Like
So
yeah.
yeah.
So what are you thinking about?
I'm deciding whether I should completely leave the camera world and start renting it,
Okay.
like as simply as a rental,
Smart.
or going up to like the 25K to 35K tier and
Yeah.
seeing what's in there, like C300 Mark III, maybe
Red Raptor.
maybe a Red Raptor, something
Right.
like that. So
Yeah.
It's tough.
It's going to be an ongoing conversation in the winter.
Yeah.
And all of it's
tough.
And all of it is I guess if people like when you're thinking about this, you have to tie it into your larger career goals.
Yes.
Yes.
Where do you want to place your craft? Where kind of jobs do you want to get? How big are your budgets that you're working on? So on and so forth. Because you don't want to overinvest
Yes.
for something that, I don't know, like a 10-bit A7S3 could do, right?
Right. Right. I mean, what Grant put it best when we had him on here. He said like, you know, he bought Alexa LF, and then now he's 35, and it's like, why'd you get that? And I think the reasoning is very legit. It shoots the stuff I want, right?
Yeah.
Like if it shoots the stuff you want, and it's like you said, aligned to your career goals,
Absolutely.
then it's worth the investment,
Absolutely.
right? And you can always turn it into a business asset. As long as I think you have to look into that market a little bit, like what goes, right? Like the C500, does it rent? I don't know, right? You got to look into it. You know, probably not.
No,
like an Ursa's not going to rent very well unless maybe you have the 12K, right? Like, so when you look into that sense, it's like you kind of got a balance between like investment and asset,
Absolutely.
you know?
Yeah.
But,
I almost put the ego aside too. Like,
Yeah.
I want this. Like, it's for me, it became an addiction. It's
Yeah.
like I want this. I'm gonna get it. But it's like, does it make sense? Like, do I need this? Not really.
Yeah.
Like, can I make it work without it? Probably.
But when you start off, you have to have like a camera. Like I think it's important that you invest in something, right? When you start in the mirrorless world.
Yeah, I guess starting off, it's been so long that I guess you're right. Yeah, absolutely.
Like you can't rent, it doesn't make sense to rent a A7S3, you know?
Yeah, when you're starting off, you have to practice. You
Yeah,
absolutely
you have to
practice.
learn.
On some level, you can watch all the YouTube videos you want, read all the American cinematographer magazines you want, and think about watch movies as much as you want, but you have to watch the way that light falls on a scene to figure out what is happening.
Yeah.
You have to look at the way that the shadows are affected by things that you do so you can remember and build that, like, I guess, light muscle memory
Yeah.
for the next rounds.
Yeah.
There's just no other way to do it.
Yeah, that's true. So is that your approach when it comes to your work? Like, let's talk about your experience, in fact,
Yeah.
how you came up
Yeah.
and where you started.
It's a good question.
So let's go back to that. How did you start, and how did you develop as a cinematographer?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I went to U of T and I got a degree in sociology and philosophy. And around that time, I was going through this existential malaise of like, what am I going to do with my life? And I started photography. I started just doing photography, and it helped calm the voice and made me focus on the world a little bit more. And I guess I did it enough, and I did a lot of travel photography that I got some gigs as a photographer back here. Somehow I got this gig working for an energy company and doing like their headshots. And guys, I had no idea like how to do a proper studio setup. So I rented like 4 pro photos, like just like every modifier known to man. I hired a PA, and we just kind of did it. And you know, it's in that anxiety and fear that I took the steps forward. So I'd say I started professionally in 2016. I used to work in the restaurant industry before that, but yeah. So around 2016 is when I was doing photography full time, and then around 2018 I transitioned more into film and cinematography, and I did that as a natural outflow of clients asking for for videos.
Okay.
Like that was the simplest explanation for me.
Yeah.
Film has always been core to me. I made a couple of short films like 2013, 2014, but that was, amateur and just with friends.
Yeah.
Film's always been a driving passion in my life, but the actual commercial side of it started to come around 2018, simply as a way to provide my clients with stuff that they need.
Right. Right.
And to really answer your question about how I did it, it was difficult and full of anxiety and insecurity. And I guess when I encounter challenges that are very difficult for me, I over prepare. Like I try to learn everything possible about what's about to happen,
Right.
so that I can come into it feeling confident. And essentially that's what I did. Failed a bit, but I also didn't fail on certain
Right.
things. And that's kind of how I was able to build on top of the various jobs.
Right. So did you ever have a moment that made you say, okay, yeah, I guess this is what I'm doing. Like I'm going to be a cinematographer. Like, was there ever a moment that led you to that?
That's a great question. No. And in some ways I still don't feel like that. I guess on a lot of levels, I feel like my true feeling about myself is that I'm a filmmaker. I directed spots. I edit a lot of stuff.
Okay.
And to me, the process of becoming a cinematographer was out of necessity to get the shots.
I see.
And I love cinematography. It is like it's my passion, just like photography is, working with images and light. But a lot of the work comes out of necessity, and so there wasn't any moment where I'm like, I should do this. Perhaps there should have been, perhaps there should have been a moment where I'm like, hey, let's take stock of your life. The healthy thing that people all do in therapy and shit. But I didn't do that. I just kind of kept going. And then I realized I was like, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is who I am. And I'm like, do I like it? And I was like, yeah, I do like it.
Yeah,
I do like it. So
That's kind of cool though.
yeah,
Just running with it. As it came up.
running with it and guiding, like having my feelings and my knowledge about my life guide me through that. There's been times where I've done jobs where I'm like, oh God, I did a lot of weddings early in the game, and I was like, you know what, I can't do this. It's not that, and some people are really happy about it, but I'm not.
Yeah.
I agree.
And making that hard cleave
yeah.
It's tough.
costs you money,
Yeah.
and costs you like ego, because you're really good at it. People are like, do more, do more.
Yeah.
We want to see more.
It's very tricky to balance that. At least
Yeah.
for me, I found it was very difficult to you're wanted.
Yeah.
Like, why not fulfill what people want? And
Exactly.
but then you realize you're steering away from like what you actually want to do.
That is it. It's like recognizing that people are going to want things from you all the time. That's just the way it is, especially in this
Yes.
capacity. And a lot of people who aren't in our field, they're wowed by a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
So it's very easy for us as filmmakers to be like, yeah, you know what? I am this shit. Yeah, I'm going to keep doing this. But you have to stay focused on why you got into it and what you want to do and how you're working towards that. Because if you lose that, you're going to get pulled by those forces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find that you have something that me and Anthony discuss all the time, like your internal mission to what you want to achieve by being a filmmaker? What makes you want to be a filmmaker? What's
Bringing back the philosophy.
Yeah, the
that you
philosophy.
learned in
Yeah,
UC.
exactly.
So a large part of why I got into this is because I feel like stories and telling them and telling other people's stories and telling your story is the best way to connect with someone, on an individual level, but also on a cultural level, on a societal level. We as people are defined by stories. We tell them all the time. I'm telling you one right now. This is how we traffic information to each other. This is how we commune. So to me, when I realized that, I'm like, what is the ultimate form of storytelling today? And it's films.
Yeah.
Like it is movies. They are
Such an influence in society.
they are like the epic art.
Yeah.
Like back in the day, used to build
Yes.
coliseums. We make $200 million movies.
Right.
That's a huge amount of human resources and money to go into essentially art.
Yeah.
So I was always amazed by that. I was always drawn by that, and watching movies
Yeah.
has such an impact. The other day I was watching. I was watching, I think, Grey's Anatomy. I started crying. I'm like, Grey's Anatomy?
That's amazing.
Grey's
And
Anatomy.
it's
Wow.
a procedural drama, and it does it,
Yeah.
So they're very powerful, and I want to participate in that culture and tradition. And yeah,
I have a question.
yeah,
It's a little off topic.
yeah, hit it.
Movies.
Yeah,
I'm watching movies in the theater guy.
okay, 100%.
I'm not. I can't do it at home. TV like that doesn't matter. Has to be in the theater. Popcorn, Cineplex,
100%.
whatever. It's just that's the experience.
I agree.
That's if theaters die, I will die.
It is my church. That's what I tell my friends.
Oh,
I'm like, that's where some people go to church.
Yeah, yeah.
I go to the theater. That's where I feel,
It's the best.
There's something you can't.
It's
like,
magic.
relive that. You can't relive it anywhere else.
Yeah.
Also,
but in
growing up
theater.
doing it, and you have like
Yeah.
experiences as a kid, like you're with your friends.
Yeah.
Maybe you're dating someone. It's literally youth, I think.
me and my friends, when The Dark Knight came out, we were like, I don't know, 16, 17, something like that.
Oh,
We
yeah.
we used to just go.
Yeah, yeah.
After school, we just kept going.
To
We're
watch
like,
it
cool,
again.
let's go to see Dark Knight again.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
That's epic.
It's a wonderful experience. The theaters, we need to protect theaters.
I agree.
Moviegoers at home need to be less critical, in my opinion, of like, I hear sometimes people complain about like their Netflix subscription, like, oh, it's $10. But you understand what you're getting.
Oh yeah.
You're getting
Yeah,
an
like-
unlimited tap of movies for $10
I
a
hate
month.
that.
Yeah.
And on a budget level, I understand, but like where we were at Blockbuster walking around aisles.
Because we had $10 for one movie.
Yeah.
Hoping they had
rent.
it. Hoping
you
someone
know,
else didn't rent
hoping
it.
someone didn't rent
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Yeah.
Being anxious that you're like, did I rewind this? Like, you know. So we're in a good. I think we're in a really good place with the amount of films that there is.
Yeah.
Quality aside, I don't like to. We as filmmakers know how hard it is to make anything.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna. If I didn't like a movie, I didn't like a movie. I'm not gonna be like, hey, fuck that thing. That shouldn't
Worst thing
exist.
ever.
You know.
Yeah.
It's hard to make movies. So
Especially good movies.
yeah, right. So I do think that we as filmmakers need to share our love of cinema with other people so that they understand what's going on, right?
Yeah. But do you feel like theaters are dying though? Like that whole silver screen, like
Don't
it's a
talk like
sad
that,
reality, but
Don't talk like
it's everything's so accessible nowadays, and I think it affects our industry like
agree.
greatly.
Yeah, I wouldn't say they're dying. I'm not that pessimistic. I'd say that they're going through insecurity and a big change. I saw Wakanda Forever the other day at the theater. That's where that kind of movie lives, at the theater.
yes.
Right.
I also like go see shit at TIFF all the time.
Yeah.
I go see stuff at Carlton Cinema all the time, and not like action movies. Just I saw
Films.
Triangle of Sadness at TIFF,
Yeah.
and it's not an action movie. It's just a great film. Go watch it. It's great. They're not dying. They're going through a difficult struggle, and it's currently a battle to see where they will go in the future.
Right.
I like that.
You have people like Martin Scorsese who are just unrelentless with their focus on bringing cinema to
Back.
people,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it's a struggle. You see it like Guillermo del Toro,
Yeah.
amazing filmmaker, and he fights for this kind of stuff. So
Right.
it's a battle.
Yeah.
know?
So let's get right back on topic to you. You've mentioned that you're in this to connect with people. Is there a specific reason why you feel like you want to connect with people?
Yeah. Oh, wow, we're getting philosophical on this one. I feel like a lot of people are searching for meaning in their lives.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people are looking to experience something,
Right.
And I feel like a lot of people are having a hard time doing that.
Yeah.
The reason that I think I want to do this through cinematography, filmmaking in general, is that it offers people an opportunity to connect with a unique perspective that they wouldn't have come to on their own.
Interesting.
So, I guess maybe on some level it's egotistical, but it's also important that we share our stories.
Yeah.
And
It's a healthy ego.
yeah, and I think that's really it. It's like
Yeah.
I want to tell stories to people. I
Right.
want them to kind of see what I see about the world. When I look at the world, I have a perspective on
Yeah.
that, and I think it's a wonderful perspective, truthfully.
Yeah.
So I want to share that with people.
It's important. I think it goes back to like the basic human needs almost of like, your parents are telling stories to you.
Yeah.
It's just another mode of doing that. Like imagine if no one told stories ever. There would be nothing to know or experience. I wouldn't leave my room. Like we can live in white boxes because we don't know that anything else exists. But the stories inspire us to explore the world as children and grow up and try things and do things.
And I think it's fascinating because stories have so many different perspectives too, right? And I think like, if you want to look at it from a directly cinematography standpoint, like if you and I were to light the same scene, we'd light it 2 different ways, with different fixtures, with different everything, different camera movement, right? And I think that's then that abstract in itself is what makes it beautiful.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
And there's nothing wrong or right. It's just 2 different perspectives on the same story. So that's really fascinating that you mentioned that. But one thing I also want to get into is also, how did you like get yourself to the point where you were getting these gigs? How did you market yourself? Was there a specific like way that you did it? Did you go on like ads, or did you just strictly network?
That's a great question. If I had to reflect on how I got clients, it's that I think I'm skilled at client relationships and talking to people who are not filmmakers.
Oh,
you know, as filmmakers, we're talking about gobos.
Yeah.
We're talking about like
gear all day.
lights, gear. That doesn't translate to anyone. It's not really. It's not a good way to sell yourself.
Yeah, you can't be like, hey, I'm asking for $2,000 and bring 2 gobos.
100%.
Like what? Like, how am I making money with that again?
The thing that I've been working on over the years is communicating complex information to people who don't know that information. So you have to tell them the right level of detail. You have to constrain your information so that it fits what they know. Right. And that's the general skill that I apply. But like, let's say I were to say specifically how I get clients, a lot of it is through word of mouth. And, like right now I'm in negotiations with a client to do a bunch of mini commercials for them. And I met that client because I was hanging out at my friend's restaurant, and he was saying, this woman was walking by. He's like, "Hey, Jessica, you got to meet Sandro. He's a great cinematographer," right? That kind of like, I guess, brand placement or knowledge placement does a lot, because Jessica then she's like, "Oh, you're a cinematographer? My friend is the marketing director at this.
Yes,
she needs this, And then that kind of thing happens. It's hard to quantify, because it's
circumstantial.
Yeah, why would my restaurant owner friend say I'm a cinematographer and not just a person who lives in the neighborhood?
Right.
Yeah. That's the kind of work that is, you can't really define, but it's a lived life. I'd say
you're building an identity, so that everyone who meets Sandro knows that you're a cinematographer, which is very, very important.
Embodying it helps a lot. It just greases the wheels. Yeah. Another thing is, when I was starting out, I took every job. Yeah. Like I remember I saved up, because I lived in Mississauga before. I saved up, I think it was like $14,000 of through the course of work, and I counted my rent, and I'm like, cool, I can pay my rent and like groceries for a year with $14,000 at the time. And if I get no jobs at all, I will have at least survived in downtown Toronto for a year. And then when I moved down, I was like, my commitment is I'm going to take every job. And guys, I took every job. Like I took some dank ass jobs.
Hey, but we can collaborate on that.
We can definitely riff on that one.
100%. But one of the jobs, I met a client who's been my client for the last 6 years, and he's been, one of those people saw my skill and talent, and he's like, cool, I'm taking you with me.
Yes.
The other ones didn't.
Yeah.
And I don't think about them. But that's the point.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it right every time. You have to do it right
once.
A few times,
right. Or twice or 3 times, right? Yeah. So
but that's like you gotta also be aware of like people's intentions.
Yeah.
Which is kind of hard in the beginning, where it's like, oh, like you want me to work for you, like that makes me feel good. Like, okay, cool, like my skills are useful. But it's a slippery slope where like maybe that person has different intentions, or they, you could be taking advantage of in the beginning, which is natural in some ways. But if you find those core group good people who want to invest into you almost as you invest into them, then it's a great relationship.
I like to your point about exploitation. It is. That's what these people do. They're like, hey,
vampires,
rock this for $50. Like, do this full day. Dude, like, it's trash. Right. And when you're starting out, you have to sometimes look. This is going to be fucked up, but sometimes you have to recognize that one of the $100 jobs is one of them you should take.
Right.
Because they're testing you out. 9 of them are not.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. It's really hard to discern which one is the one. Mm-hmm. So if you're completely new, if you're completely green, if you don't have a portfolio, if you don't have anything, take all 10.
Yeah.
But don't take all 10 absentmindedly. Take them with the clear intention that you're going to really do the work of figuring out what is happening to you and what these people want from you. You have to have a meta awareness of yourself. You can't just go there and take the photos for them. You have to
Yeah.
take it for yourself as well.
Yeah.
And you have to have that skill, that self-protective boundary skill, so that when you do get pulled by these forces, you're not just ripped apart. You have to take yourself to these places too, right?
That's a big point. And Danny, I think, can speak on that a lot.
Oh
too.
yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, like, there has to be an investment in yourself. Doesn't matter how much money you get paid. Even till this day, even as experienced as we are here at this table, like, I'll take on a gig at pretty much free if I feel like it invests in myself. Yeah. If it makes me a better cinematographer or gets me clients or whatever. Like this podcast. Yeah. I paid this out of, me and Anthony paid this out of our own pocket. It's an investment within what I feel can help the brand and the business. It's a bigger goal, right? And so even at the beginning, I think you're right. You have to be able to measure that, but you also have to be able to be aware of your self mental health and even your physical health.
Absolutely.
And if you can measure, it's a lot of things to balance, a lot of things to think about. But if you can do that, that's your key. And like you said, one of them. That's all you need is one of them.
So how long were you doing I'm gonna do everything for everyone? I guess, like, was that a year-long process? What did that look like?
No, so the answer to that is I was doing it until I realized that the shitty job that I didn't want was competing with a job that I did want.
Yes, taking up your time.
So then I had to actively decide between two, and then it was, it's kind of like these machines where it's like you drop a ball and it keeps going down different directions.
Yeah.
I saw which directions were going to which way, and I'm like, cool, I'm gonna make this move. So it slowly weaned off to the point where I noticed I was taking a job that I hated. I'm like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And then I realized, I'm like, this is the end of that journey. Now you're on a different journey, which has its own pitfalls, but it's a different journey. You're no longer in the I need to survive and take jobs journey. Now I'm in the I want to do meaningful work journey, which has its own challenges. But it's a different journey.
That's crazy.
And taking the time, I think a lot of people don't do this. Taking the time to celebrate that is very important.
Yeah.
You have to be like, I completed my journey. The other day I was thinking, because I was looking at some paperwork and I was looking at like my income statement from when I worked in a restaurant. And I looked at it and I was like, wow, life is so different.
Yeah.
For me right now. I'm in a totally different world, making a totally different amount of money. And like recognizing that and appreciating that is very important.
Yeah.
Because the film industry can get you jaded real quick.
Yeah, you can get lost in the sauce a little bit too.
100%.
But yeah, I think like that reflection, I definitely don't do that. But it is important because it makes you appreciate where you can't come from, how far you've progressed, and like also probably realize where you want to go. Like, this is where I'm at. Where can I go next? That's the real thing. It reignites. If in 2016 when I had that amount of money saved up and taking shitty jobs, if I wanted to do it then, what does that mean now when I'm closer to it?
Right.
How much do I want it now?
Yeah.
It's a context thing, So yeah.
Yeah. Well, you talk about taking on shitty gigs for low prices.
Yeah.
Right. I know one of the biggest challenges, especially early on. Now, I understand if you're perfect, like brand new green, you should be doing whatever you can to get your portfolio up, but you eventually get to the point where you got to price yourself.
Yeah.
What kind of advice do you have or how do you price yourself? Perhaps people can learn from the way you do it.
So there's many ways to do it. I think what I'm settling on right now is there's two worlds for me. There's the day work and then there's the project work. Day work, gaffer rates, script rates, cinematographer rates. Just look them up and pick where you want.
ACCP.
Yeah, ACCP. Pick your number and that's your rate.
Yeah.
And you can budge on that if you want, whatever. Project rates where you're kind of like, I do a lot of like directing of commercials, mini commercials, and doing the whole process alone or with a small team. That's a question that is variable because, if Twitter wants you to make a reel versus like the restaurant across the street wants you to make a reel, you're in some ways doing the same thing. Right. But one of them can pay a lot more than the other. Mm-hmm. So you have to have a market awareness. Mm-hmm. You have to have an awareness of what other people are paying.
Very good point.
And you also have an awareness of what those people's particular concerns are for that project. Like, let's say you meet someone and they need a commercial filmed in 2 weeks that is going to be a crucial part of their pitch investment deck so that they can make $15 million as a company and then go public, and then all the people who own that company are rich. That's a project you should charge a lot for because they will pay it.
Yep.
And they don't have the time to look around. They don't have the time to do this. They want a solution. And when you're in a scenario where you can provide a solution to a problem that they want, and you know it's you, you can charge. You can charge a pretty penny.
Yeah.
One of the things that I learned was, this is maybe a trick. When you're in a place like, let's say you're financially whatever, you're okay, and someone gives you a gig, price it to an uncomfortably high level so that you think they will turn you down. And then when they say yes, you'll know that's what you're worth.
Yeah.
You know? So like, let's say just for, if you're billing $1,000 per project, you know, bill one at 3,500.
Yeah.
And if the person's like, you know what, I really don't have 3,500, but I got 3, all of a sudden, nothing's changed in your life.
Yeah.
You're the same person, but now you're worth $3,000.
Yeah, yeah. I reached that same milestone at one point in my career. I'll never forget it, where I had 11 retainer clients and I fired all of them because I just raised my price on all of them. Because I sat back and I realized, I'm like, wait, everybody's saying yes to me.
It's hardcore.
I'm like, I need people to say no to me because I need to know where my limit, how much am I worth?
That's it.
So then I go from $300, I'm like $500. The next person, I'm like, 1,000.
Yeah.
And then they'd be like, yeah. And I'd be like, oh,
Yeah.
1,500. No, I'd be like, okay, so I'm somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500.
That's it. Getting the no is
Yeah,
important.
exactly.
You know, and like we said, because it's so fraught on the climb up, you're just scared of the no's. You're like, don't say no to me. Please love me.
tough. Yeah.
But the no's important. You need the no.
Yeah.
The no helps you calibrate. It's failure. Failure
Yes.
helps you calibrate.
100%.
That's a great quote right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
You need the no to calibrate.
You need it. You
Yeah.
need it, man. So that's a little of the way. And then if you want to get, like, that's the general way. If you want to get super technical, you can do market research on the company.
Yeah.
You can do a whole bunch of things to find out how much you should charge. What you shouldn't do is charge so much that if you're steadily getting work, that you're in subsistence pay and you can't pay your people well. That's no bueno.
Yeah.
I see. So do you work mainly direct to client? Do you work with agencies? Like, how do you typically?
I'd say it's like 50, maybe like 65-35 in favor of direct to client.
Okay.
I have agencies that I work with occasionally. They put me on their roster and they just call me up for things. That the pricing is inflexible pretty much there. You know,
They kind of give you what it is.
They know also they're
Yeah.
kind of in the industry, but client to client, that's flexible.
Yeah, like I'm not sure if you follow the Future Chris Do or anything like that, but
Yeah.
it's like all value based pricing, and it really is kind of, it has to be custom for the client, like you were saying. With the Twitter example is a perfect way to put it. It's like,
And another thing is you should price to ensure that you don't get fucked later down in the project. Let's say you're directing something or shooting something, and you're also doing post on it, like.
Yeah, you don't want to run out of money by the time you get the post.
100%.
Yeah.
And you have to insulate yourself on things. Contracts are very important. I know people are like contracts. Just find a contract, a boilerplate contract, and use it.
Yeah.
Because this year, a client tried to pull some shit, and I was like, and you know, and it's in a non-aggressive way. I was like, let me just check what we agreed to, and I'm like, so we agreed to this.
It's on the contract.
Yeah, it's on the contract, and you know, I guess
signed it.
I can move, and then you make a concession, like I can move the day around, which is whatever. I don't,
yeah,
you know? But this is what we agreed to. This is the
Interesting.
money,
Yes,
and you're gonna
exactly.
pay it.
Interesting.
And also, if you want to really be tough, you have cancellation clauses in your contract, shit like that.
And security deposits.
Yeah.
That's another one. Do you ever run into problems like that? Like, since you do mostly direct to clients, since you have to handle essentially the money at that point.
I mean, yeah, I'd run into problems all the time. It's terrible. I hate that side of the business. Please, someone do it for me. No, I don't really like any of that stuff, to be honest with you. I think it's a drag on my creativity. I think it's a drag on like my free flowing nature. But that's
part of the game.
That's currently where I'm at in my career.
Right, I
Like,
see.
The challenge for me right now is moving from 5 to 50K budget things to
Right.
50K to 500K budget things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like that's the journey I'm on.
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
Right. And with that comes people to support you and help you, and producers and so on and so forth. So that's my journey.
Yeah.
Find out next time if we've made it.
Yeah, next episode.
Yeah.
Now, are you operating as yourself, or do you have a company that you work under as your brand?
I brand myself through my name, but I have like a company just for the back end stuff. But and then I hire people as needed for projects. Pretty much, yeah.
Are you mainly handling the editing yourself, or are you outsourcing it for these projects?
I pretty much handle it myself. Occasionally I'll get a producer on deck if I really don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And if it's a bigger project, so yeah.
Okay.
Do you ever find it challenging to find time to do things that you actually want to do, like creatively?
Absolutely. Whoever says no to that is a liar. Whoever's like, no, I have full time to do all my creative things. No, that is a very difficult thing. And you know, when your time is worth money, you don't see the value in spending that time on yourself because you're not making money.
Right.
You know, if your 8 hours are worth $1,000, let's say, then a Tuesday with those 8 hours free are worth zero, but they're not worth zero. They're important for you. One of the things that I was really working through COVID, like wild, and you know, my friend told me, he's like, you're working like the lights are going to go off, Sandro. They're not. And then it dawned on me. I was like, there's no time for leisure in my life. And since there's no time for leisure, there's no time for creativity. And since there's no time for creativity, it's affecting my work because we work in a creative field. We need to be creative. Right. So it's important. You have to make time for it. You have to. It's difficult, but it's something that has to happen.
Yeah, it's tough. Like I had the same problem where like I was just booking every single day, whether it was editing or shoots or both. And it became my normal for like years, like 4+ years probably. And it's like,
I know the feeling.
Everything else is suffering. It's like relationships, life. Like, what do I do outside of work? What do I talk about outside of work? Nothing.
100%.
And like, I think there is something I'm still learning. I'm very much learning is like the experiences outside of work help the work.
Yes.
You know, if you live in a box, you're not going to know anything outside of the box.
If you're not 100%, you can't put 100% into your work, right?
Yeah, I think I read somewhere, and correct me if I'm wrong, Roger Deakins, but I think his advice was like, if you want to be a great cinematographer, go travel.
Yeah.
He's like, you'll get experiences.
I like that.
You'll see different things. You'll see the way that the world looks. I was like, fuck. I was like, I wanted some lens advice. This guy's giving me the life advice. You know?
But like, you know, like all the technical things, you can learn them.
Yeah.
And you learn them from just being on set. Like you can just go and just PA for someone, go to the first AC and be like, oh, what lens is that? And you just talk to people. Like the technical stuff is easy.
And also
That's the
hot take. You don't necessarily have to learn them.
It's true too.
That's
Yeah,
why
you don't
there's-
have to. Yeah,
that's why you
that's
have
true.
first ACs and second ACs.
It's true. That's
Because
why they're there.
That's, you know, these people are very talented at their job.
Yeah.
Use them to do the work that you want to do, which is to tell this specific story. It can be a corporate story, it can be a short film, but it is a story. So
Yeah.
We had Nick Pilecki on, who's another cinematographer, and he was saying, yeah, I get paid for my mind. I get paid for what I know, like my perception, my vision. You don't really build that by studying lenses and optics and all those things. Although that's important and fun and you can do that, but you have no life experiences to enforce your vision. You only have a vision.
Yeah.
agree.
You just have like what you've consumed in your life, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. And like we can easily get caught up in like knowing all the little nitty gritties of what everything does. And it's fun. And I think it's almost like, in a way, it's like, you know, you're just you're just enjoying what you do.
You're nerding out a little bit.
You're nerding out a little bit. And I think a bit of that is healthy because it's just you practicing you're preaching your passion, if you will. But I think getting too caught up in it and forgetting that there's other sides of cinematography, there's other sides of filmmaking that you have to also practice how to be a good communicator and how to hire a team properly and how to talk to directors and how to talk to clients if you're doing direct to clients. And all that stuff comes in with your personal life.
Absolutely.
You know, and if you are coming in all tired and groggy and like bad mood, and you'll get the client's going to see that, and you're not going to have the best, you know, meeting with them, and you might lose the job because of it. So it doesn't matter how talented you are. If you as a person is not built to kind of be in this industry, like your talent's just going to fade away with it.
That's true.
Yeah. But we know that you did a short film. What was the title of it again? Melody, yes, Melody. How did you land that? Because that's clearly a very like a more of a, what do you call it, a personal project, I would assume.
Yeah, that was definitely okay. So I'll tell you about that.
Yeah.
It was written and directed by Mitch LeBlanc, who's a close friend of mine. And right around 2019, late 2019, we're like, or sorry, 2018 maybe, something like that. We were just hanging out. We're like, hey, let's make a film. it was essentially that. And I said, and he's a writer. He's a fantastic writer. He's in the WGA Access program right now. And he wrote this script, and then we got to work on it. We just basically broke the script down, moved to producing it within 3 or 4 months.
Wow.
Rallied a location that was
that location was crazy.
Guess what? You're never going to see it again because they destroyed that building. So that's it.
Wow.
If you want to see a unique part of Toronto for one time in life, you go watch this film.
Wow.
Yeah, and we kind of coalesced, and I was a producer on it as well, so I contributed to the, I guess the more than just the cinematography of it.
Right.
And that's how it came to be, and it was a wonderful project. Highly recommend if you have friends who are filmmakers, audience at home, just go make something with them because it was fun.
What was the biggest challenge in that? Because I noticed that like you guys went pretty pretty committed to your choices. Like it was very like still, like you guys sat on shots. And was that like an active choice of like to do with the story, or was it like what was the like meaning behind all that?
Yeah, so when Mitch and I were thinking about how to go about it, we were very intentional with camera motion. And
I could tell.
And so we did a lot of locked off stuff, because if you can do a locked off shot and you can enjoy the shot, that's a good shot.
Yeah.
Like you're not relying on like a Marvel constant push or a
transitions
move.
And
you're relying on the story.
Yes.
And the scene inside of it. So
and the lighting.
And lighting. So we're like, this is a challenge. And the motif of the film is it's about a girl trying to finish a song at the end of the world. And so, it's post-apocalyptic, and we wanted to make it so sterile and stark that she's doing this and alone. Sometimes when you just watch something, you just stare at it and you're unmoved and it's playing out. That's the kind of feeling we wanted to give the audience. So essentially there's a scene at the end where we get this big long push towards death, and that's when all of that still work pays off. All of those locked off shots, finally you're like, okay, take us there. Take us there.
Yeah.
And then it's in some way it's like we're ferrying the audience towards their demise. Like that's on a I guess meta level. So it was very intentional. And we thought a lot about how to set up the shots and how to move them. So
even the color is very monochromatic. You guys didn't go too crazy with that. I'm assuming that's all intentional with the story.
Yeah. So the whole movie was lit with candles. We didn't use any.
Yeah, you were telling me
we didn't use any electric lights.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the color grading, it was difficult. I color graded it, and it was like really. There's something that happens in the highlights when you just crush them a little bit. You create a little curve on them that they blend together, kind of like on a film stock, and they get milky.
Yes.
And I kind of wanted that feeling to wash over the entire footage while still keeping, the blacks rich and so on and so forth. So we didn't want to, those rooms were very colorful. And when we were shooting them, it was bright yellow and so on and so forth. But we didn't want that to
fascinating.
Yeah, we wanted to feel like there's no warmth here.
Interesting.
And it was cold when we were filming. The lenses froze. Everything froze.
Really?
The Ronins froze. It was crazy cold.
Wow.
It's like minus 23. I think it was the coldest day that year had.
No way.
Yeah, it was in February.
And wasn't that man
terrible.
topless? And
Yeah.
Poor
James
guy.
Thorne. He's
Poor
he
guy.
He was amazing.
That's legendary.
He was amazing
Jeez.
because there's a lot of shots where he's just in the background watching.
Yeah.
And he was amazing. He was great. I think that was his first big acting thing. Yeah.
Wow. And one little quick little tidbit about that film. When you sent it to me, Instagram has this glitch at one point where it will play even though your Instagram's not open. And I swear to God, it freaked the living shit out of me. Because there's a part in that scene where the girl's whispering. What's she saying? I forgot the line. It was something like, "Can you hear me?"
Yeah.
And it was just I had my phone. It was on his home screen all here. "Can you hear me?"
That's
Hello. Yeah. And I'm sitting there like, who the fuck? I was like, what the hell is that?
And there's
Came from that film.
there's some horror sensibilities in the film too. It's like a woman confronting death, right? So and Mitch loves horror. Yeah, that's very funny. I remember when you posted, I was like, this is gold.
Scared the shit out of me. So what gear did you use for that?
Okay,
film?
so I shot that on a C200. We shot it in RAW, which is 12-bit on a C200. And I have these Nikon photo lenses from the 70s repurposed.
Yeah, so we got vintage lenses.
Yeah, so they're like Cine repurposed, and that was the range. We have 24, 35, all the way up to 105. I think f2, and they have a nice look. I think for stuff like this. So that was the setup. We had a Ronin, we had a Dana Dolly, and pretty much I think that was the extent of it.
And what about crew?
Crew. We had Jason D'Souza.
No way, Jason was on that. I
Jason's
just saw
on
him yesterday on here.
Yeah, he's great. I met him years ago.
Love Jason.
And before he was even in the field, we met because I was shooting his friend who's a magician. I was shooting some like artistic shots for them, and Jason's like, I want to do this. I want to do what you're doing, and I was like, do it. Nice. And then here he is. He's great, and he's phenomenal.
That's so cool.
So he was first AC. We had Val Castaldo as our second AC, and we had a bunch of PAs. A bunch of my friends were PAs, and so on and so forth. So that was the crew. Jason's great.
Yeah,
love Jason.
And no lights.
Yeah, so we had candles.
Yeah, only candles.
Only
You didn't
candles.
cheat any lights at all, any tube lights or anything.
Straight up, we didn't cheat anything. And honestly, cheat.
Yeah, of course.
If I had to do it again, I'd cheat. But we wanted to like see, we were like channeling some Kubrick, Barry Lyndon vibes. We're like, let's go.
You want to brag about it, yeah.
Right. And also on some level, we're thinking it could be marketable for the film.
Right.
It could be like, hey, this film was shot only using candles, right?
Yeah.
It's like shit like that you think of just as a producer.
Yes.
So it was difficult.
Yeah.
The light level wasn't there.
Especially on a C200. C200, you're pushing that a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I rated the camera at 1600 ISO.
Oh, wow. Just to get exposure.
Yeah.
Because it was also part of the scenes with daylight were so short because there wasn't a lot of daylight. Sunsets at like 4:30 in February.
Yes.
So this was like, what was this, like an abandoned building in the middle of the forest or something?
It was on Montrose Avenue in Little Italy, and it was a historic building that the owners were just going to tear down. And they said,
cool.
we're tearing it down like March 2nd.
Wow.
And we shot February 22nd.
No way.
23rd. Yeah, it was right there.
Wow.
We lugged a piano into there.
Yeah, I saw that at the end, right?
That piano wasn't in the house. You know how hard it is to move a piano?
That's not ideal.
It's out of control.
Yeah.
And then when we kind of left it there because we knew the house was going to get demolished, and they're like, you got to take the piano out. We're like, please just destroy it. We can't do it.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah.
So what was your biggest challenge in that film, did you find, as a cinematographer? I can imagine just timing the sun and having consistency in that was probably one of them.
I'll say the biggest challenge was balancing light levels with candles. Like that was so difficult. So at one point there's a shot of the camera's up here and we see a shot of Jacqueline, the actress, playing piano. Yeah. And there's a lot of orange light coming from the side. What you don't see off screen is literal like flames burning. There's like
you have to set off like candles.
Yeah, there's like 50 candles going in this one section to create like a source light that we need.
Hilarious.
Wow.
So that was very difficult, and candles go down.
Yeah.
And it was also very difficult. We were looking at sourcing different candles. We're like triple wick, double wick. There's so many different. different variations.
Candle expert now.
Yeah. So now every time, now I know how they use candles. There's like these thick triple wick candles.
Yeah.
And the string is really thick. So when it burns, it's really bright.
Okay.
And that's kind of the ones that you want to use, which we didn't have.
Yeah. Nice little pro tip.
Yeah. So you really stuck to your guns, because at that point you could have stuck an assistant on there and just put on candle mode, but you decided to burn like 50 candles.
And there was
instead.
There was also like budgetary concerns. Like we were funding this, and we got some private funding as well. That's another thing. It's like we're like, hey, we're fucking doing it.
Yeah.
Funding aside, it was outside of grant season.
Yeah.
So we're like, we're just gonna do it. We found some private funding, and candles were cheap.
Yeah.
There you go. How'd you find private funding? What's that process like?
What's that process like? I think we there was. It's a reputation thing as well. We approached some people that we knew who had money.
Okay.
And we asked if they'd like to participate, and all the people who had money didn't want to participate, but they're like, we believe in you, which I was like, all right, whatever.
Useless.
But then friends and family who kind of saw what we were doing and who believed in our careers funded some of it. And then me and Mitch funded the rest.
That's pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you able to tell us what budget you guys ended up using for that?
I think it was like $5,500, man.
Yeah.
It was like super low.
Yeah.
Yeah. shoestring, maybe $6,000. What's that in inflation money? I don't know, $8,000 today. Yeah. It was small.
Cool. Awesome. All right. So let's talk a little bit about mentality and I really want to dive into one topic I'll ask everybody. I want to talk about burnout because I think that's a very, very common thing that happens with all of us. Is it something that you experienced, and how did you deal with it when you did?
I experienced it quite significantly during COVID. At the time, I took a full-time job as a creative director of a company. They offered it to me because I was freelancing with them, and then they offered me this job. And simultaneously, I took a job as a director of production for a tech company. And I was like, my logic was COVID, everything shut down. This is good.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was good till it wasn't. And I didn't realize that it wasn't until it was late in the game. And I've completely burned out. I was like super, super jaded, super cynical. When you're burned out, nothing's logical. You just want to run away from the thing that's causing you the inflammation.
That's
so
right.
you can't even make clear decisions, which is very important because you're freelancing. You need to make decisions daily, weekly.
Yeah.
So if you're in a position where you can't make good decisions, but you have to make them to sustain your career, you see the conflict?
Yeah.
It's just going to keep going down that route.
Yeah.
So to be honest with you, I took some time and I had some like frank conversations with myself. I went to therapy, a whole bunch of stuff. Like you have to actually like heal yourself. You have to heal yourself. And one way that I did that was by doing things that are fun. You know, playing music, going to travel, just leaving the stuff, putting it down.
Something outside of filmmaking.
Yeah, putting it down and noticing that I miss it.
Yeah.
Interesting. So how did you deal with the two companies you were working with at the time? Like, did you step away? Like, what was the conversation like?
So the first company hired me and I told them they really wanted me. So I told them, I was like, listen, the other company also wants me. Can I do both? And the answer, the creative director company is like, yeah, we'll give you 3 months to get your stuff in order. And so basically those days I was working like 19, 20-hour days. It was ridiculous. I woke up nonstop. It was good money, but nonstop.
Yeah.
And then the tech company slowed down a little bit because we finished the project. And then I just worked full-time at the other company that I was a creative director at. And how did I leave? Oh, man. I noticed that every part of the company was like imbued with a toxicity, interpersonal toxicity, and like the workplace culture wasn't the best. And I noticed that I wasn't effective. That really that was what did it. I'm like, my efforts are useless here. No one is listening. I'm not empowered to do the things that I need to do. So then what am I doing here?
So no matter how hard you tried, it just wasn't making an effect.
Very common.
Yeah. And the role, and then I was like, I could plug along like this.
Yeah.
But why? You know,
Right.
I'm 31. There's maybe 50 years left. Like
Yeah.
every second counts here.
Yeah. I
So,
feel you on that one.
Yeah, it's like, so I'm like, you know, when I realized that I was being completely useless at my job, I'm like, well then, how's this serving the company? How's this serving me? Am I even the right person for this job?
Right.
Yeah.
You know, there's an ego thing there. It's like, maybe it's not me.
Yeah.
Maybe something else is for me. This isn't. And so I quit.
Nice.
And I quit, and the company took it was a rough quit because I was such a central node in it.
Yeah.
So
You just collapsed.
So was
like
it
Jenga?
just like, was it like rough as in like they wouldn't let you go, or rough as in like emotional?
They felt the
or-
effects of you leaving?
the CEO at the time, I had a good relationship with him, and I wanted to keep that relationship. So I gave him a solid amount of time to figure out how to work without me. And to be honest with you, when conflict and change occurs, they also react. And my leaving rippled out and caused other conflicts. Conflict's not always bad.
Yeah.
You know,
Sometimes it's necessary. It's just hard to get to that point.
sometimes it's necessary. And if I was the node, well, that's it.
Yeah.
Listen,
But you
everything
have to
happens
look
for a
after
reason.
yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
100%.
Yeah. You have to look after yourself.
So what did you do after that?
After that,
Like, were you a free man? Were you just like, I have nothing to do now?
So after that, I had a retainer for the tech company that was small. That was enough to like maybe cover monthly costs. But I was like, I have to rebuild freelancing world, right? And it was difficult. It was difficult. It wasn't as difficult as the first time,
Yeah.
but getting into the zone again, calming the anxieties of like, hey, my paycheck's not coming, you know?
Yeah.
You know, stuff like that was the difficult part.
Did you have to deal with the emotional burden of like letting someone down and letting people and upsetting people?
No, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm pretty. I over communicate before we get to that point.
I see.
If we get to a point where you feel let down by me, that to me is a strange situation for myself. The only way I could do that is if I fail you. But if I tell you what's happening, if I'm communicating what's happening to you, if I'm asking you for help, if I'm providing solutions, and then it ends.
You did what you could.
Yeah. And I don't feel any ways about that because I'm very intentional with my communications with clients, with people in my life. So if it gets to a place where it's falling apart, you know, I feel like I've done everything I could.
Wow.
Yeah, that's fascinating because I think that leads to like building a kind of like a culture within yourself throughout the, you know, because it's always going to be tough when you're constantly, you know, doing just whatever you can to please the other person. And then later on, you have to suddenly force to like let them down. It's a difficult thing to deal with, right? So I think it's a very good point for you to bring up to like build that culture within yourself, be honest with yourself, be authentic, communicate. And if you do that later on down the line, when you got to separate, you got to move on, it might be a bridge that you're actually saving and you're not burning down.
Yeah. You just have to love yourself enough to do right by yourself.
Respect yourself.
You know, you really have to care about yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really it.
Yeah.
Because if you care about yourself, you'll figure it out. You know?
Yeah.
I think the communication when it needs to happen in that instance is really a good lesson because it's easy to harbor it, push it aside, deal with whatever tasks needs to get done. But if you just hit it in the moment, every time, it'll make it a lot easier because the biggest fear is letting someone down, right? People are always gonna feel let down in some way, but if you've, like you said, if you prep them for that and they knew everything before that, then it's not a shock. It's just the natural ending of something.
Yeah. I want to cap this off by getting into advice with to the younger people who look up to the work that you do and perhaps want to do what you do.
Sure.
What kind of words do you have for those people?
Stay away. Just kidding.
Don't do this.
Don't stay away. You have to accept that your life is going to be, I think this is the advice. You have to accept that your life is going to be different from your peers who work 9 to 5, who work stable, regular jobs. You have to accept that you're living in a different condition. And once you accept that, you will be free to make the moves that you need to make to pursue what you want to do. You know, if a weekend is a Friday and Saturday to most of the world, that doesn't mean it's a weekend for you.
Right.
You know, if you're feeling the peer pressure to behave a certain way, that doesn't mean that you should behave a certain way. You have to kind of stay true to what you're doing. You have to understand that this isn't like a regular job. It's a very self-driven, self-motivated job that the success of this job largely depends on your input of it. You know, not to say that there's privilege and all kinds of things that come into this factor, but at its core, you're driving this boat, and you have to figure out how to drive the boat to do that.
Right.
And on a technical level, learn your craft. Like we're waxing philosophically, but we're craftspeople. Like we're in a trade. You have to learn how to do this.
Yeah.
You know, you can't be a chef without learning how to make good food.
Yeah.
You can know all the recipes and sit there and tell someone, but you need to learn how to do this. And you need to really learn and focus on the subtleties and nuances of the craft, not just, you know, hey, I can put a light here and that's it.
Yeah.
You take some time, take some effort, you know? So
Yeah, no, that's two really good pieces of advice, man.
hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, it pretty much sums it up, right? Finding a balance between being a craftsman, being a businessman, and being you.
Yeah.
Right, and merging a way to yin yang all those three things. And it's a tough balance. We struggle with it every day, like all of us. You know, like sometimes you
Always.
Yeah, always. It's a never-ending battle. Yeah,
I was in therapy just before this. I was like, talking to my therapist. She's like, "Don't worry, you're doing great." I was like, "Thank you."
Sometimes you need that little
You need that though, right? Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I think it's important to get that positive affirmation, and having a good environment around you is probably key. To go back to your first point and your first piece of advice, right? Accept the fact that your life is gonna be different from everyone else, because that's ultimately what we go through as artists. And one of the biggest things I know we go through as artists is being misunderstood.
100%.
That's that being misunderstood makes you feel like you're alone.
Yeah.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that they're wrong.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you're wrong. It just means that there's a misunderstanding.
Exactly.
It's no one's fault. Just continue.
Yeah.
No one. You don't have to be understood. Just continue. Just keep going.
Yeah. Just keep going.
You know how many people don't understand David Lynch?
Yeah.
Keeps going.
But David Lynch is.
He just keeps going.
Not only is he going, he's loving it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because he doesn't care.
Right.
He doesn't give a shit. If someone comes and is like, I understand you did Vinci, he'll be like, cool.
Yeah.
If someone's like, I don't understand, he'll be like, cool.
Yeah.
I'm making movies.
Yeah.
That's what you got to do.
I like
That's
that.
true. Yeah. That's perfect advice.
That's the next piece.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. All right, cool. We're
Hey,
gonna
thanks
call
for
it
having me,
here,
guys.
man. I
This is
appreciate
great.
you
That was
coming,
great.
man. All right.
Great.
Peace.